basic components that I think are super important. One is audience definition. I think that if you're creating a marketing plan and you don't know who you're talking to, then you're probably wasting your time. So I think it's pretty important to figure out who your audience is, and we might talk a little bit later about some ways to do that. I think another really important part of marketing is to start collecting information on that audience. So I would say having a database, an easy way to do that is through an email marketing campaign, or at least to have an email marketing hub somewhere. And then part 3A is some goals. So that's some framework around a marketing plan, like figure out what you want to do, who you want to talk to, and how to continue to collect information on those people so that you can continue to talk to them. Basic nuts and bolts stuff, I think it's really important to have a blurb, a bio blurb that you can both repeat to people who want to ask about your band and to send out to people about your band or to post on social media. You may get less or more character count for those. I would say don't do the 5-page bio. Like, people don't read. I'd love to believe that they do given my profession, but 150 words or less about your band. Please include the names of your band members. And while it's fun to get kind of cute, like one of the things that has been hard in the past is when you have some like weird fake band name and people in the media are trying to report on your band and figure out who you are and find you and talk to you. It doesn't help to just have your alias or whatever it is. Like, use your real first and last name. Also list the instruments that you play, because that will be an important part for anyone that's trying to easily go and find you and reproduce information about your band. Press people are very, very, very busy, and they're not going to spend a lot of time digging stuff up if it's not there. So you want to feed people information. Part of that information that you want to be able to feed them easily is links to be able to go hear you and see you. So whether you're using SoundCloud or you have media elements on your own website, come up with that little blurb, come up with live links to those sites, a YouTube video, and make that the thing that you include. Either maybe it's part of your email signature that you send out all the time, but at least it should be easily accessible so that if you want to talk to somebody or send information out, they can go see what you look like, listen to your music, know who you are. Third thing, or sixth thing, for those of you keeping score, is photos. So have good quality photos that you can share with the media as well. And if you don't, please ask us, and I know some of you have asked us for some recommendations, and that's something that we can talk about too, is some good photographers here in town that can do that well. And you may have, like, there's often the girlfriend or the friend or somebody who is a fan of yours, and that's great too. Just make sure that you get some quality graphics, and these two can answer some questions about what that might mean. So that's my 3 to 6 things.
I would say whatever's sort of represents you. I think I'd say like authenticity, basically. Kind of find out your own personality. Your logo will sort of represent you when there is no photo. So you want it to be, fun, artsy, sort of give the audience an idea of what your band might be about before you get that chance to represent yourself, if they haven't heard your music. And that doesn't mean that, that's the end-all be-all. It's like, oh, I don't like their logo, so they're probably not good musicians. I mean, it's not that serious. But I would just say make sure it reflects your authentic self and make it fun. Like, that's the cool thing about being in a band as opposed to some business company, that you have a opportunity to make it fun. And so while things like legibility and your font choice is kind of important, logos are more iconic, I think. So, I mean, the Rolling Stone logo, just the tongue, like you see that graphic and you know what it is. So it's easily recognizable, even regardless of what the words say. So I don't know if that answers your question, what goes into it, but maybe it's some things to think about when you're working on your design or having a friend work on your design or a freelancer. Just make sure that that it feels right. I think it's more of an intuitive thing, even though we're talking about a visual thing. Yeah.
Logos are tricky with a band because when you're branding a band, you're branding a sound, you're branding your art. So it can be difficult to get to that point where you have a logo that you want to use. But I think the earlier in your career you can get a professional logo designed by an artist, the better. I think the longer you use it, the more recognizable it becomes, just like any other brand. So I know one of the mistakes I've made, which is ironic as a marketing and a creative guy in my own bands, is sort of letting that stuff slip by and getting moved on in my musical career without taking care of some of that stuff. And then you get to the point where it's like, well, somebody wants a media kit and they want your logo and they want all the stuff that you don't have, and it's not the kind of thing that you can throw together at the last minute. So I think thinking about logo, thinking about art, thinking about design early in your careers is important.
Being not the word person and not the picture person, one thing that you can also do is just a type treatment. So with your name, the same type of font all the time, or create a look around your name, because that's a big part of your identity. But I don't think it's a bad thing to have a logo too. Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah, to expand on that, anything can be a logo. There's nothing that says you can't take Times New Roman and make that your logo.
Right.
It's all how you use that. It's all how it's applied. It's all how it's defined by you, the artist, and that's important. But I think having something visual that's recognizable to you is important. And the sooner you do that, the more you use it, the better it.
Oh, I'm so glad. I really didn't plan her out there. You probably just heard my sermon enough. Everybody wants like the magic piece for marketing. They want to know what the easy thing is or what the magic bullet is, and there isn't one unless it's consistency. So you have to be consistent and persistent. Those are the two things, and be able to say essentially the same thing over and over and over, and remember the fact that whoever you're talking to may not have heard it yet, and to talk to other people within your band. Every single person in the band plays a part in that, because again, it's your business. So you're business owners, and you're out there in the community, and you're out there meeting fans and meeting media people and meeting peers. And so you need to be prepared to at least be able to say some basic stuff about your band. Yeah, it should be short and it should be recognizable. And, a thing on genre that I would also throw in there is please don't make up some weird genre until you're like super big and famous. Then you can make up whatever that is. People that don't know your music want to be able to connect and understand what you do. Yeah, psychedelic, jam, hop, grunge, like it doesn't make sense to people. And this is the way the world is. Like, this is the Amazon world where it's like, if you like Nirvana, you'll like, so you have to make those correlations for people. As much as you don't want to be put in a box, please help your audience.
Yeah, I think it's necessary just to get just to get somebody interested, just to give them a point of reference. And I do think I give people enough credit that if they're a little bit interested, they can make up their own mind. But it's like you got to get them in the door first. So.
And I can tell you where it matters most is when you start dealing with the professional music world, when you start dealing with agents and managers and people who book shows and producers and those kind of people. They're very interested in what genre you're in. They're very interested in your marketing. They're very interested in those aspects. And those are going to be the people that you'll probably have to sell yourself to more than anybody, because at that point you're going to have fans, you're going to have your local thing. But when you start trying to sell yourself to the business side of the world, of the music world, it becomes really important, because they deal with hundreds of bands every day. They don't, just like you said, they don't have time for your made up, genre, they're going to be looking what hole can we plug these guys in, if we're going to work for them. And so it really helps if you can have some focus in that area. I think your concern is a fine line that musicians walk their entire career. I think as you move forward in your career and you work with people who are going to help you with marketing or an artist that are going to help you with your image, and really asking people that you are going to work with professionally, like, what do we look like to you? That sort of thing, and build your image through how other people, professionals see you. And that will be incredibly helpful in shaping that as you move forward. And I think it's a natural process, but I know, myself as a musician, one of the things you're always scared about is the whole trying to sell yourself too much and becoming, fake, or, it turns into some kind of a pitch or that kind of thing. And that's always a fear, I think, for musicians. But I think it's important to realize that if you move forward and you're really going to be a professional musician, then it all becomes business. It all becomes about selling. And that's what everything you do is based on. And so at some point, you have to embrace that in a way that you're comfortable with to make that go.
We always call it the story of, like, I want to sell out, but I don't want to sell out.
You want to sell out every night.
You want to sell out the show, but you don't want to sell out your band. It's hard.
Well, I think you need to create, make your shows an event. Make your shows something that people don't want to miss. And make it more than just, hey, we're playing at Hodie's Friday night. Why don't you guys come on down? We're gonna have a good time. It's got to be the thing to do. When you create a show, when you're gonna have a show, you have to make it special. And I think that's a great way to create value with them, because people, wow, we just paid $10 and we saw this killer band and they had these awesome lights and they had this stage show and there was art and, like, people were giving away posters and whatever it is that you can do to make your shows really special. Because there's a lot of bands in the world. You're competing with thousands of bands with people that are as good as you or better than you. And, it really is going to come down to what sets you apart. And I think a huge way you can do that is to focus on your shows being an event and make that something that's just, I don't know, everybody can have, whether it's a theme. I had somebody very smart in the music business once tell me that every successful band has a holiday. And they pick that holiday, and that holiday becomes theirs. And if you think about, like, Blues Traveler plays 4th of July at Red Rocks for 25 years, something like that. Things like that that you can do to, hey, this is special, and the people that like our music are going to want to come do this, and it's not just another Friday night. It's this big show, and we're going to go see it, and it's, that sort of thing.
Devotchka Halloween.
Exactly, Devotchka Halloween. Everybody, or Devotchka is Valentine's Day, right?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
And Halloween.
Everybody latches onto Halloween. But just things you can do to make there's 100 good bands playing in Colorado on a Friday night. Why should somebody who's never seen you come see you? Those sorts of things in your own head. Like, what brings you out to shows? What gets you, try to step out of the musician's mindset where you're just looking at, like, well, that guy's a great player, so I'm going to go take notes on it. But why are people going to see certain shows? Why are certain bands successful? Look at what they're doing. How are they promoting their shows? What's going on at their shows that's different? Those sorts of things. Because I think you really have to set yourself apart somehow from a live aspect, certainly.
I would also say, be fun, but have fun. And I'm not saying this as a graphic designer, but more so as just, like, an audience member in the crowd. Like, you can sort of tell when the band's not into it. And so the more fun that you're having, the more it sort of becomes an event, because I feel like people do pick up, from being on this side of the stage, you can pick up on their energy.
And I would just throw in that I think the value goes beyond the 2 hours or maybe 45 minutes of a show. I think most people these days are wanting to build a relationship with you, as comfortable or uncomfortable as you may be with that. They want to get to know you better. They want to And I sent an article to Ian today that I'll have him share along with our contact information that was about specifically millennials, and in the article they defined that from like 15 to 29 or something, but the range of that age range is used to being able to connect directly to you. They expect it. They expect you to connect back. They want a window into your world, whether that's via you reaching out to them specifically, or even if it's like Instagram or something where it's like we get to see what you see when you take a picture and you share it with us. They want a relationship, and the show is sort of like the thing that happens in between. It's their way to come and see you personally, but they want 24/7 access to you and your life, really. So that's something to think about as value. Of course I'm going to say yes because I'm in marketing. So I'm like, you have to be, present all the time. But I also say that, there's a philosophy of choose your channels and choose to be intentional. Like, you can't be everywhere all at once. Pick a few, stick to them. And I had a marketing person say once, her thing was, don't go there if you can't stay there. So don't just like be a flash in the pan all over the place. Like, don't be on Twitter just to be on Twitter. But her other contradiction with this was she would also say something is better than nothing. So for instance, I would say probably 80% of you are on Twitter, but you're using it as a broadcast channel directly from Facebook. And I know that because I'm on Twitter. And so when I go there, I see posts that are just links and like they're half sentences that will take me to your Facebook page, and I can go find out more, and at least like I'm seeing your name come up in the feed and I'm seeing content, and I can connect. But sometimes, maybe just to be a jerk, like I'll send a little something to you on Twitter and just like crickets, because you're not really on Twitter. You're not having a conversation back and forth, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I kind of do actually believe that it's good for you to at least to begin to have a presence there. But the ideal would be that you connect to me and I can connect to you, and we can have a conversation on Twitter, and the information that's there might be different than what you're posting on Facebook because it's probably a different audience. So that's my 2 cents on, that's not exactly micro content. I went off on a tangent, sorry.
Oh, right on.
I'll zip it.
I'd say also when you're posting, pick things that are relevant. So yeah, you want to be out there, but if every time you sneeze there's a post about it, people get bored and they just start glazing over it. They're like, oh, and they'll see that icon of your band logo that you have and just glaze over it. So while you do want to be present and be noticed, just sort of be mindful, be relevant, and pick and choose what you're representing and when and how often, I'd say, too, you decide to post.
The basics, I think, are Facebook for sure. People expect you to be there. It's sort of like the yellow pages of today now. Like they think you should have a presence there. Twitter maybe. YouTube for sure, because it's a way for them to hear and see your music. And the number one thing that I will push is that you guys get your own website, because it is your territory, it's your content, you own that content. So no matter what happens, if Facebook, as they have and continue to do, decides to like turn off the stream or suddenly shut down how many people you're able to talk to without paying for it, or who knows, somebody buys somebody else, like Yahoo just bought Tumblr, you own that content and you can get the information from your analytics, and it's your real estate. So that's what I'd say.
And it kind of expands on what you were saying earlier. Whatever you use, make sure that you're using it to its fullest extent. Because when you sign up for, say, a Bandcamp page, or there's 1,000 different websites you can make your own little band page, if you're not utilizing that, if you're not keeping it up, if somebody goes to that site who hasn't heard your band and that's the first thing that they see, then that's who you are to them. You're an incomplete web page. And anybody in the business is going to look at that and be like, next. Because so once you put it out there, you own it, whether it's a poster, whether it's a business card, whatever you're doing, whether it's social networking, utilize it to its fullest. Because if you're out there and you're present and people are coming across those sites and it's very obvious they're not being maintained, then it just makes you look like you're not the real deal.
I don't know, I guess, how many tickets did you sell? I don't know if that's a good answer. Do people, I don't know, what kind of feedback do you get? Do people say like, oh yeah, great poster, or I saw that video on YouTube? Like, what kind of feedback do you get? I think even from your friends might be a place to start as you're starting out. But I mean, I guess the answer changes depending upon what your goals are too. So if your goals are to fill a venue, or is your goal to get, you know, cast a wider net and get people out of state to like you? Do you want to tour? Do you want to be, you know, more well known outside of Colorado, or do you just want to make sure that the bar is filled when you're at Road 34? So I think that might be what's working. Depends on what you want from it. So I don't know if that's a really clear answer, but
I agree. And I mean, in marketing, we call it KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and you figure out what your goals are, and then you align those with your goals. So, you know, if a key performance indicator, like Susanna was saying, for you is ticket sales, that's an easy one. Like, find something that is tangible and say, we want to sell X number of tickets, and then go and find out that data and be like, how many tickets did we sell? Like, that's an easy one. The squishy side of marketing is there's some, you know, and this is where we like to caution bands, is like, don't choose a vanity metric like Facebook likes. You know, if you have 10,000 Facebook likes and no one's buying a ticket to your shows, that's not performance necessarily. Unless it just, maybe your goal is, I just want to feel good. Like, I want to feel like people like me, then great. Then you're achieving your goal. That's what I would say.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, from a musician standpoint, I would say, are you know, how many tickets are you selling? I think it's incredibly difficult to make it in the music business if you can't bring people to shows in this day and age. So, you know, I would focus your marketing around those things and making sure that you're selling tickets. I think that's the best indicator. You know, are people coming to your shows? If they're not coming to your shows, then you have to figure out how to get people to come to your shows. That's simple.
How do you do that outside of your local market?
Outside of the local market is really difficult. I think one of the best ways you can get people to come to shows where people don't know who you are is to street flyer the night of a show. I've seen that work really well. People, especially if it's, you know, if you're playing a show, say you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you're playing near the college and there's like a bunch of people around, and it's a Thursday night and nobody knows what you're doing, you're probably going to be a cheap ticket because nobody knows who you are. You know, if you can show up to that town a few hours before your show with a bunch of flyers and go around to coffee shops or places that people hang out, that's a really great way to get people to come in directly. And talking to them, you know, conversation, as much as we all probably would hate to admit it, musicians often come off as egotistical and not incredibly accessible. James is the exception. But yeah, if you want to know how to talk to people, talk to James. But no, really, how you talk to people, and I'm horrible at it. I'm not very good at going up to strangers and saying, hey, come see my band. But how confident you are is how confident they'll be in you, and that's, you know, so important. And beyond all the marketing and the social stuff and all that, face-to-face, how people perceive you is going to really matter later. You know, whether it's the business side or whether it's the fan side, it's really important.
It is, and especially nowadays when there's so much noise and there's so much electronic media, like the human connection is super important, and maybe more so than ever before. And the other thing that I would throw in is that if you can find the people in your life, and I call them sneezers, find the sneezers. And those are the people that are going to talk about you, that already love you. Everybody has like the super fan that is super well connected. Find those people and ask them personally. Don't send like a blanket email that's like, hey, fill in the blank, I'm trying to get some people to come to my show. Like, call them on the phone or text them and be like, we're going out tonight, are you coming? Are you going to be there? And could you, ask them? People do things because you ask them to. Could you bring some people? Could you help us spread the word? And if they are a person that loves you already, they love that stuff.
Guilt works too. Hey, remember that time you threw up in my car? Well, my friend's band is in town, so call your
Right.
friends and let's go. That's worked.
Yeah, if you're out of town too, reaching out to local radio can be huge. Like contacting the DJs, talking to them, asking if you can come into the studio. Like they love that stuff, and I know it's a total pain because you drove all night and everybody's tired and you have a show, and it's like, who wants to go to the radio station and sit in a little box? But if you can do that, that can be huge, because the radio can be good allies for you. So if you can make friends with the local DJs, that can be, they're involved with shows, they're involved with festivals, those sorts of things, I think when you're at the point where everybody comes to a point in their musical career where they're going to go in and record like that next, what you perceive in your mind to be that next step CD. I think when you get to the point where you're going to spend some money on an album, whether it's an EP or a full-length album, I think that's when you really need to bring the focus in, and that's when your imagery for your CD, your imagery for your press releases, your imagery for your one-sheets, your imagery for your posters, all those things your website, all that art needs to start tying into, because that's what the business people on the next level that are looking down at you, those are the first things they're going to see. They're going to go to your website. They've got your CD in your hand. They want to see that all that is professional and cohesive. So I think anytime you're going to spend money on an album, you should budget to spend money on the marketing behind that and make sure that that's supporting that. Because without it, you just put an album out there. And I've had friends hand me really amazing pieces of art in paper sleeves with marker written on them. And they went and they spent, $2,000 to do an LP at a local studio, and there's nothing behind it marketing-wise. So you are that. So when you hand that to somebody, you are a paper sleeve CD with marker on it. I'm not saying that people in this room would do that, but that's really the time when I think it's time to focus that and bring somebody in and really, if you're going to spend the money on a CD, market that music, you should, have the support behind it to make sure that it's as successful as it can be.
I would go back to, speak back to authenticity. I do support hiring somebody that knows how to do it better than you. And I think that somebody, if you are an artist or you have somebody in your group or in your band that does have a visual artistic ability that you vibe with, then that's fine. You don't need to necessarily go running to an agency just to get a logo or to get an album art, especially because we do have, especially in Fort Collins, a big pool of artists that are available and that are talented. But that said, last time I mentioned DIY gone wrong. You don't want it to look like it's amateur either. And I think there is a line between homemade and amateur. So if you want to do it yourself, as long as when you're looking at it, you think, does this, whatever it looks like, does this represent us? Does it look professional? Does it feel authentic? Is it fun? Is it cool? If it was on a t-shirt, is it something that somebody other than myself and my friend would want to wear in public? Or those are questions to ask. Or if you're, getting something cheap and you're settling for it because, well, it's cheaper, I have Microsoft Word and I picked a font, there is a line, and I think just sort of be honest with yourself about what kind of image you want to put out there. And I think finding artists is it can be, simple. You can even find artists on Craigslist. Some people do contests. Fierce Bad Rabbit did a contest for their last album. And so they're just threw it out there and saw what comes back, and then they can pick and choose what feels good. But just whatever it is, however you decide to find your artist or create your art, just ask yourself if you feel good about it. Or if you were at a merch table, would you buy this t-shirt? Would you wear it? Would you feel comfortable? If you did meet somebody from the press, would you really feel confident? I think confidence is a big thing. Would you feel confident handing over the CD and saying, yes, that's my name on the back, this is my music, our music, and feeling good about it? So as far as how, I think a lot of it is just a little bit of self-reflection and confidence in making sure you like it. So yeah, whether it's soliciting out there, or if it's contacting somebody you know, or asking your friends what they like, or if you see something that you like, if you see a cool poster, find out where it came from and see if you can get in touch with artists. I mean, we're pretty easy to find, and we're always looking for money, so call us.
And we can help with that too. Like, we have lots of connections. There's two sitting right here. Shane has done some graphic design for us. Amy from Post Paradise has done graphic design for us. There are plenty of resources that we can help you tap into also.
Yeah,
But
I mean, reach out to the college kids too.
Right. We have interns that have helped.
Mm-hmm.
Grassroots. I would just tie it back to, it's still about relationships and still about people. And part of it is still about budget. It's a little bit like, you know, when people are getting married, there's this decision that you have to make about, like, we really, really care about flowers, so we're going to spend a lot of money on flowers, but photography is not that big of a deal. Like, you have to set some goals, and I do think it's still a business decision. Like, there's some finance involved, and Grassroots is a lot about, like, what can we do for cheap or for free, but do think about where you want to invest a little bit of money, and certainly where you want to invest your time. But it starts with, who do you know? It's still about who you know.
Yeah, I would agree, the networking thing too, and who do you know, and if you can't do something, don't be afraid to ask and find out. You know, just because you're a Grassroots doesn't mean that you have to look like you're struggling. So if you need help with graphics, reach out, ask people. If you need help with marketing, or like as an artist, in my case, it's the other way. It's like, I can do this stuff, but I don't know how to run a business or how to implement things. So create a network and find out who can you delegate to, and who can do something better than you can, because we're all good at something. So
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest thing with Grassroots is don't look like you're a Grassroots based. You know, you want to look professional. I think Grassroots, that's an interesting term that's used in marketing, because oftentimes Grassroots success stories have a lot of professional push behind them, and there's a lot of, right, Obama's first campaign was Grassroots, right? So I think you know, at some point you're going to have to look and be professional, and the sooner you do that, the better. I think the biggest rule is don't put anything out in the world that you don't want to define you later on. So if you're putting a CD out and you're like, well, this is just good enough, and my brother, he's in graphic design school and he threw this together for us, and we don't really have the budget for it, so but you know, we're at the stage where it doesn't really matter. It really matters because later on somebody's going to see that and go, oh, that's who that band is. You know, so something to think about.
And don't neglect the fact that you have fans that want to help you. Like, that's the magic thing, is that you guys are special, like super special, and you have something that most people can't do, and talents that most people don't have. So let them help you.